from Qatar, they have to be out. This explains why the Syrian National Council or Council from Above, all the name that they have this week, with the guy that is in charge this week before he resigns. We don't even know who these people are anymore. These are out of the picture. So now it's Bandar running the show. This explains a lot of what's going on now, including the possibility of a false flag.
So Bandar Bush arrives on the scene and is coordinating much of the terrorism that is taking place in Syria, and this is another exceptionally important piece of this puzzle. And it is very interesting to see the political bedfellows that are being made in terms of the people who are all interested in seeing the destabilization that's happening in Syria right now. US, Israel, Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, all of them with their fingers in this pie. So it is a confusing and complex geopolitical situation. But at the end of the day, it's not difficult to see all of these players' interests in making sure that Syria is destabilized, in making sure that Assad and his government does not ultimately last, and that Syria does not necessarily become a Sunni majority tyranny, but that at the very least it gets divided and moved into this ongoing sectarian struggle, regardless of who's nominally in government there. So very, very interesting to see all of this coalescing. And I would leave things there, but I think there's, of course, one more important piece of this puzzle that probably shouldn't need to be spelled out, but from time to time, it's just so obvious to a lot of us that it tends to go over our heads that there are people out there who still don't understand the importance of this particular aspect of it. When we talk about these types of conflicts and what's behind them, we cannot fail to talk about the military-industrial complex, which really does thrive and make its living on the blood of the innocents, and really does involve these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars a year are being pumped into the militaries of various countries, and including the largest military on the planet by far, of course, the U.S. Imperial Army, is being pumped into the military-industrial complex every single year, and it always needs fresh blood in order to grease the skids of its industrial finance, and also, of course, to justify its very existence. And on that note, people might be able to cast their minds back a few months to one of my recent conversations with Sibel Edmonds on this very topic, and how the military-industrial complex is very much behind much of the strife and destabilization, because of course there are people with an actual verifiable, documentable financial interest in these wars and bloodshed taking place. So let's just listen to a short extract from that conversation with Sibel Edmonds.
Now, if we take the military-industrial complex and now look at that in relation to the Cold War, the end of the Cold War, the period before 9/11, between the end of the Cold War and 9/11, and then the period post 9/11, we get to see a lot of facts that are out there open before us that we don't need any whistleblowers for. We don't need any experts from Harvard or Yale, the ones that come on NPR and they talk with their gobbledygooks. It's pretty simple. You look at the graph. And when I say graph, look at the financial power or the financial value, the dollar value, net worth of these companies and how much business they did, okay? If you look at that graph, which you will be showing when you publish this post, that graph is very revealing. We had this several decades that we had this wonderful excuse, the reason created, perpetual war, as in Cold War, that we said we need to build our defense because there is this gigantic, humongous power out there that wants to be a superpower and turn the entire world communist. They want to come and invade us here. They want to come and invade our neighbors. So we need to pile up. We need to spend all our money and build all these nuclear weapons and the chemical weapons and the military bases. And we spend trillions of dollars. Well, our government didn't produce any of these chemical weapons or the planes or the bombs or the programs or any of these things that the expenditure goes towards, it's going into. They paid who? they paid these entities, the large ones. Let's take the top 10 companies in the United States. Let's talk about Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing. And they said, okay, here are the money and we get these. Okay, so the survival of these companies, and if you look at the net worth, the value of these companies, and they have tens of thousands of workers, employees, okay, these are gigantic companies. You're looking at worth close to $100 billion each. I mean, you're looking at a massive, massive industry. And their survival, their existence depended only on one thing: fear factor and the fear of wars. Okay, so it's the war industry that is driven by the fear factor. And the fear factor was communism. And as long as we had the fear factor, and as long as we had these monsters, which in this case, monster, the Soviet Union, the communists, which again is in line with our villains and the heroes thing. We always have to have the evil country. Remember George Bush, the axis of evil, the evil communists, how Reagan was evilizing it. You do that, the fear factor, and you have a booming war industry, okay? Trillions of dollars. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger and just became a monster. And then we had the end of that Soviet Union. We had the end of that communism. And this was the WTF moment for the industry, because put yourself in this industry's position. You're looking at hundreds of billions of dollars of industry, okay, trillions of dollars. The fear factor that communism is taken away, the monster is gone. And we are looking at shrinking war industry, meaning what's going to happen to tens of thousands of workers, billions of dollars of profits, okay? I mean, wouldn't you get nervous? I mean, this is, our existence depended on this monster we created, and our mainstream media, of course, on the forefront, pounding it, making it a really big, scary monster. Gone. So you look at the graph, and then you look at the expenditure. The built up during Reagan era, going up and up. We're going to outspend them, man. We're going to bankrupt them. We're going to spend. Well, yeah, we outspent them, all right, and they're gone. Then look what's happening to the war industry. Look at those companies between 1991, 1992 till about 2001. The expenditure is going down. You're looking at some really, really, really nervous people. They're sitting and saying, this was a great monster that we created. This was a good monster to pump up and create the fear factor around it. But next time around, we learned a lesson here. We are not going to make the same mistake. We're not going to take a monster that can be taken out like this, with the Soviet Union's fall, with the Berlin Wall coming down. We need to create some kind of a monster that we never have this kind of a risk with, something that can go on forever. Because it's an abstract, because it's invisible. One day it's in Mali, the other day is in Sudan, it's in Iraq. Oops, they are in the caves in Afghanistan. They are in the deserts in Yemen. I mean, they are all over the globe. And how many of them are there? Who knows? Maybe 100 million, maybe 100. Nobody can put a number in them. How do you identify them? Where are their bases that we can go fry and bomb? And it can never be destroyed. Yet, these invisible, it's like amoeba. We still take the traditional planes and traditional bombs and drop them in there, even though we have already concluded they are like amoebas, right? Well, that's for the military-industrial complex. And if you go back now and look at that graph and see what has been happening to that industry since that day, 9/11. And this is humongous. This is the largest it's ever been. And if you look at the graph, look how steep it is.
Once again, Sibel Edmonds, boilingfrogspost.com. I will, of course, put the link into to that video in the show notes so that you can go and watch the full interview. And Again, what more needs to be said? Today we've explored a number of different aspects of why different players at the geopolitical table have an interest in seeing this Syrian war and destabilization proceed, and it can be confusing at times. There are a lot of different people involved, so I again will urge you to go to the show notes for this episode and to take a look at those links and to start exploring this more for yourself. Of course, I'll have more to say in the coming days and weeks, but again, it's important for us to expand our knowledge and understanding of what's happening beyond the cartoon politics of the chemical weapons and even the knee-jerk response that we have to that, which is to play into that paradigm. There are much greater geopolitical and geostrategic agendas that are taking place right now and that are coalescing around Syria. And unless we understand the bigger regional game of dominance that's being played on this geopolitical chessboard, we won't understand what's really happening, what's really behind this agenda, or how to really put an end to it. So on that note, I'm going to leave things there and leave you, as always, to begin the real exploration for yourself. Once again, please use these links in the show notes as a starting point for your investigation. And as always, I'm interested in hearing about the different pieces of this puzzle that you out there individually are able to uncover. In the meantime, I am James Corbett of CorbettReport.com, and if you find this information useful, number one, please help spread it to others, and number two, I do rely on your support to keep this information coming, so of course your subscriptions are appreciated, and in return for subscribing to the Corbett Report for as little as 100 Japanese yen a month, that's about $1 a month, you get a subscriber newsletter every week that includes my International Forecaster editorial, recommended reading and viewing, discounts on my DVDs, and once a month a subscriber-only video. So it's value for value here at the Corbett Report, and I do appreciate your support. On that note, let's leave things there for this week. I'm looking forward to talking to you again next week.
The Corbett Report is brought to you by the Corbett Report subscriber, a weekly newsletter featuring James Corbett's International Forecaster editorial, recommended reading and viewing, discounts on Corbett Report DVDs, and once a month, a subscriber-only video. Sign up today to start receiving your copy at corbettreport.com/support.